For the next question from chapter 2, we're going to solve x squared plus 6x plus 4 by completing the square and quadratic formula. At this point, I'd like to recognize that this does not factor, as there are no factors of 4 that combine to 6. So we know that we can't solve it by factoring, which is the easiest way to solve a quadratic equation. Here, I would consider this one easiest to do using completing the square, for the two reasons that we've gone over. The a term is 1, so there's nothing complicated about completing the square. And this term is even, so that mantra, half the middle term squared, is going to give us a nice integer. So completing the square is going to be a very efficient way to solve this problem. So let's get to it. I'm going to start out by moving the 4 to the other side and leaving some room. So the 4 gets subtracted to the other side, replacing the 0, and there's a blank space here. Now for you, you can fill in that blank space yourself. I'm going to just copy it over. We're going to take half the middle term, which is 3x, or just 3, and square it, which will give us 9. Now what I do to one side, I must do to the other. So this thing on the left is going to become the perfect square, x plus 3 squared. And that is going to equal negative 4 and 9 is 5. Now my next step is to square root both sides. So x plus 3 square rooted is equal to plus or minus the square root of 5. So x plus 3 is equal to plus or minus square root of 5. X is equal to negative 3 plus or minus square root of 5, which is my final answer. Can't forget the plus minus. And your answer probably might be shorter than this. I rewrote several steps. So these two steps are probably the same for you. These two steps are probably the same for you. So it is shorter than I have written. I just want to show every single step. Now the quadratic formula, for those who don't remember, and you will have to remember, is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, I like to break it up into negative b over 2a plus or minus 1 over 2a times the discriminant, which is that square root thing. Well, here, negative b is going to be negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 6 squared, which is 36, minus 4 times 1 times 4, which is 16 by my reckoning, all over 2a, a being 1, all of this over 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this down into two different pieces. Negative 6 over 2, which is going to give me negative 3, plus or minus 1/2 this radical. Well, then we can simplify this radical pretty easily. 36 minus 16 is going to give me 20. Now notice that rad 20 is really rad 4 times 5, and 4 is a perfect square. So rad 20 is 2 rad 5. So 1/2 of 2 rad 5. The 1/2 and the 2 cancel. We're left with negative 3 plus or minus rad 5, which is exactly what we got by completing the square. So both of these methods are acceptable. I would consider this one to be easier. That one requires a little bit of memorization.